In an era characterized by technological advancements and virtual work environments, the boundary between personal and professional spheres has become increasingly blurred. Many people are struggling to balance both work and family, but unable to find success in both areas simultaneously. Today on the Champion Forum podcast, we discuss how to win at home. Welcome back to the Champion Forum podcast, everyone. Jeff Hancher here, and I am on a mission to help others lead, inspire, and win in this life. Our guest today believes that in order to achieve success at work, you got to win at home first. You got to win where it matters most. In his new book, Winning Begins at Home, we're challenged to reevaluate our definition of achievement by asking the question, does winning at work require losing at home? And I think this is going to be a great discussion. Randy Gravitt, welcome to the Champion Forum podcast. Thanks for spending time with us today.
Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Appreciate all you do, and I'm grateful to have the conversation.
Yeah, so I got to be introduced to you through my friend Mark Miller. You guys have been doing some amazing things together for quite a period of time. You got a new book coming out that, oh my gosh, I can't wait to dive into this. I know that the leaders, the people listening are going to get a lot of value out of it. But, you know, by the way, I wish that you would have written this book about 20 years ago.
I keep hearing that.
Because I don't think I did this. I know for sure I didn't do this well, and there's opportunity. So I'm looking forward to unpacking that. But you've been in the leadership spheres for a long time, for years. You've supported a lot of major brands that are out there. What prompted you to write the book, Randy? What are you seeing and hearing out there that you said, you know what, there is a chasm that we need to cross? What prompted the book?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jeff. It does go back to what you just said. We work with lots of great organizations, brands, sports teams, businesses, churches, schools. I mean, it runs the gamut. Hundreds of organizations over the last decade that we've had an opportunity to serve, and it's been great. But one of the things that kept coming up everywhere we would go is this idea that, you know, we're building these great businesses and helping people with profits, and I mean, it's great. Engagement and culture, all the stuff we work on, we love that. But I kept talking to executives and coaches and you know, owners, and they kept saying to me, there's this gap in my life outside of work. I don't feel like I can balance it all, to use the work-life balance word. And maybe we'll get into that. I'm not even sure that is the word we ought to be talking about. I got a thought on that in a minute. But what kept coming up was if basically the way I say it is, if you win at work and you lose at home, I think you still lose. Nobody's telling me I want to build a great company and feel like that's enough. I think the most important part of our lives, most of us would say, is not what happens from 9 to 5. It's actually what happens from 5 to 9, if we could use the old proverbial, 9 to 5 language. And I think that's really true. I mean, obviously the book is about family and that part of it, but there's a lot more outside of work than just family. I mean, the way we take care of ourselves, our emotional health these days, our financial health. I mean, there's so much that's happening outside of work. And if we're not careful, we'll just climb some ladder at work. And that's great. I love that. I love chasing high performance. I'm like you. I mean, your audience, we're all, let's go make a difference. It's fantastic. But if we do that at the expense of what really matters most, I think we end up down the road and probably have some regret. And leaders just kept telling me that over and over again. And I'm like, there's no content really on this idea of what happens outside of work, not in the leadership space. I mean, there are some books on family and marriage and parenting and stuff, but sure. I thought, okay, how do we have this conversation? And so we thought we'd create some content, and we're excited about it.
Man, it is exciting. And as an executive coach, helping entrepreneurs and senior leaders through this gambit that we run, this is one of the biggest challenges that we have. And I'll tell you a story, Randy, and to tell you why this is meaningful to me. You know, before we hit record, we were talking about our families, and you got an amazing family and some amazing daughters, and I got a son and a daughter, and here I am out chasing, you know, running up the corporate ladder, trying to provide a life for my kids that I didn't have, and you know, doing the what I thought was the right thing to do as a father. But yet I would feel resentment in every area of my life. And one specific day stands out to me. I'm a hunter, so I love to be in the woods. And, you know, I'm up several feet in a tree stand, which is like the closest thing to heaven I can get to on earth from my perspective, right? And so I'm just out here enjoying nature and finally get some downtime from work. And I'm sitting in the tree stand, and the only thing I could think about was my sales strategy for the next month, and how I was going to beat the projection because I missed it last month, and what we were going to do differently, and should I hire that person that I interviewed yesterday morning. And it all started to hit me in the tree stand, so much so that I got out of the tree and I walked home, went to my home office, and began to work. And my wife comes into my office and she said, "What in the world are you doing?" Here I am, full camo with my laptop open, you know, doing work. And she's like, "What are you doing?" I said, "I was sitting in the tree stand and I was resenting hunting because of all the work that had to be done." But adversely, Randy, I've been at work at 7 p.m. to get the work done, and I'm sitting there thinking to myself, this is absolutely horrible. I want to be at home with my family. So whether I'm at work, I'm resentful. Whether I'm with my family or in the tree stand, I'm resentful. How do we cross this chasm? What do we do about this?
Well, I mean, this is exactly what happens. I mean, I wasn't necessarily in a tree stand at the moment, but I have these moments where I'm reading to these little girls when they're younger, you know, and you could just feel this. You're there, but you're not there. I mean, you're with them, but you're really not with them if you're not careful. And so I think the key really is to your question is you got to really focus to be where you are. It's like when I'm at work, I love being at work. I think that's a great thing. I'm not saying to anybody that work doesn't matter and you shouldn't be making a difference. Your audience, there's amazing people here that are listening, there's greatness in them, and they're making the world better, and we need that. But I think that the caveat is when I'm at work, I want to be at work, and it's easy to even be at work, Jeff, and be distracted by all kind of stuff as well. Not even just family, but I mean, the world of distractions we live in is crazy. But when we go home, we need to be home. And I think we live in a world now where there's so much, we're tethered to the phone and the technology and all. My wife and I were just talking a couple of weeks ago. There's graduations going on in the area around here. And I said, "Do you remember back when we graduated?" And she's looking at me like I'm crazy. It was 40, I mean, it's over 40 years ago when we graduated from high school. Not together. We're in two different places. I said, "What was it like standing in your graduation line?" And she's like, "What are you talking about?" And here's what I said to her. It just hit me. I'm like, if you had told me then that a majority, maybe not a majority, but a large part of our life is going to be spent looking at a screen in our hand. I mean, this was a time when there was, in my little town, we didn't even have computers, much less a phone. It wasn't even car phones yet. I mean, and now we just look at how things have advanced. And you go to these restaurants all of a sudden, and you're seeing people sitting around a table at the same table, but they've got 4 phones out or 6 phones out or however many they have. And maybe they're texting across the table, but there's a good chance that they're together without really being together. And I think that's the key. It's like when I'm at work, I want to be at work. And when I'm at home, I need to be at home. And I'll give your audience one thing to maybe consider a tactic is when I leave my neighborhood, there's a stop sign out at the main road. When I cross that stop sign, I need to go into work mode if I'm leaving the neighborhood. When I turn back in, I can give myself a few minutes from the office to think about whatever I need to think about. But at some point, pick a red light, pick a stop sign, pick a street. And when you cross that line, really try to leave that there. And we know if we do that, it'll still be hard. It's not, it sounds great, but it's still going to be hard because there is always that access. And we feel like if somebody texts me or somebody emails me, I need to be responding all the time. And I think that's a choice. And so I would encourage people to really just focus on being where you are.
I think it does create routine too, and it creates boundary. These anchor points is what we call them, whether it's a stop sign, whatever it might be. I love that. But yeah, I think you said something earlier too, Randy, that I loved, which is, and this is the real call to action. And you said the word regret. And look, I have adult children now, and I think we can all look back and wish we did it differently. And the old cliche of nobody ever said, "I wish I would have spent more time in the office," but there I was at 7 p.m. trying to get shipments out, or whatever it might be. But here's what I think we learn is that what matters to you is what gets your attention, right? And you emphasize the importance of this in the book by encouraging the reader that we need to reevaluate what our definition of success is. And could you elaborate on what this means and why it's so crucial for people, especially those in leadership positions, to be evaluating what is the definition of success?
Yeah, that's a great question. I do think this is an important topic because so many of us, our definition of success is what somebody else says it should be. Our boss, the person we report to, maybe even somebody at home. We've had a mom or a dad that tells us we should go after this, and how many of us had this? We're passionate about something growing up, and we're going to go down this road. And I know people, even older people, who are saying, my parents told me to go get this degree so I'd have something to fall back on, and it really wasn't what. So wherever we go, we have other people telling us what would make us successful and all this. And I think the answer to the question is we get to decide how we define success. But you said it. You're a little older as well, but I'm older than you. We've been around for a while, both of us, and both of us would say that our regret is not that we didn't spend more time at the office. Back to your point, it is a Right. It is a cliche for a reason. People say that, but it's the reason they say that is because you don't get to be an older guy. And what I did, or man or woman, and think that way. What I did is I said, okay, let's push out to our 80th birthday party. Now, there may be people listening who are already 80, and go ahead and think your 100th birthday party, because I don't think it's ever too late to shift your focus if you're focused on the wrong thing. But I started thinking, I went to a Stephen Covey thing. Remember, I don't know, years ago, you probably read the 7 Habits book. And one of the things he talks about is begin with the end in mind. And he has this exercise, or they did in this workshop I went to, that said, I want you to write your eulogy. Just pretend you lived to 80 and all this. And I'm like, well, that's great, but I want to change it. I want it to be a birthday party. I want to be at my 80th birthday party. Your friends, your family, your husband or wife, kids, they're all around, some coworkers as well. What would you want them to say? And as you begin to think about that, I think that gives you a little bit of what is success. Because I know for me, if I get to that day and all I did was work, and all I did was avoid, and all I did was have broken relationships because I was there without being there. I was tethered to technology all the time. I just know me, that's where regret is going to lie. And I don't want to be, there'll be times I'll be disappointed because I didn't live up to the standard that I want. And I'm my wife and I last night, we had a disagreement about something. We've been married 37 years and we're trying to get it right. This is not easy what I'm describing, and it's a daily challenge is my point about last night, but I'll be disappointed because I didn't get it right some of the times, but regret is going to be, if I didn't have focus, I didn't have intention, I didn't have a strategy to try to build a family that everybody can be proud of on that day when we get to that party. So that's the way I think about that. Regret is, I can live with disappointment. I don't want to live with regret.
Man, that's well said. That is well said. And, it resonates with me so much what you're saying, because it's what led me to leave the stability of the career that I loved, by the way, is like, this fear of starting your own company. Well, what if I don't? Well, on my 80th birthday, would I look back and regret it? By the way, I now have a little more freedom to spend more time. Yep. Now my only regret is, why didn't I do it sooner? Now, look, the rearview mirror, it's small, so don't spend too much time looking back. But I think we can learn from that a little bit so that we can make adjustments. And I agree with what you're saying, Randy. I don't think there is a perfect science, because we're seeing this even at young ages. I saw this even with my kids. I mean, back in the day when I was growing up and, you played a sport, you played football and then you were done. And then you played baseball in the
We're done
spring and then you were
basketball,
done.
later baseball.
Now, oh, now it's like you better find one sport and play that thing year round and be in every camp and get personal trainers and pick up your speed and all this pressure that we're putting on even children to spend all of their time doing that. I found the same pressure in the corporate world. And a lot of that I put on myself, but it's like, wait, but I want to be successful. I want to be promoted. I want to earn more money. So guess what that means? Well, I got to outwork everybody.
Yeah.
I got to develop new skills. I got to do more. But then you're looking in the living room and you're like, well, what about them?
Yeah.
I'm not
Well,
spending time with them.
yeah, I think Jeff, to that point, it feels easier to measure it at work. I did get promoted. I did get a raise. I did get an office. I did get an expense
Yeah.
account. Fill in the blank. And so you feel like you're climbing up this thing versus home. You're going, man, I corrected them again or I encouraged them again and they don't seem to get it. And now they're losing their mind. They're 12 years old, whatever. And I'm like, am I connecting? And that feels hard. And for some of us, because that's hard, I used the word avoidance a minute ago. I think we just say, I just hope they'll turn out okay. And Mark and Mark and I always say to companies when we're working with them, hope is not a strategy for high performance. And I don't think hope is a strategy at home either. Maybe they'll turn out okay. That's not what we want to think about. We want to have a way to really build our family. I mean, families, I always say families that last aren't built fast, but they are built. It's just like a team at work or a company. It's got to be built and it's got to be led. And so I love that mindset. But if I'm not careful, I'll be more comfortable over here and I'm uncomfortable at home. And so I'll just go work more to avoid dealing with it. And sometimes, I'm avoiding, the conflict of it or the challenge of it or whatever. I don't know how. Nobody's ever taught me. That's one of the reasons we thought we'd write this book is like, nobody, who's teaching us this stuff? I mean, if you're like me, you're just, back in the day, we had our first baby and first couple of days went great. We're at the hospital. They're helping us take care of it. And then they send you home and you have no idea what you're doing. You're going, oh my gosh, this is crazy. So
Yeah. Well, and you develop skills to get good at things. So that's where you gravitate. You're good at work. You're good at sales. You're good at leadership.
right.
And so that's where you are. I remember my son was the first one we sent off to college. And here I am his senior year thinking, like, what did I miss? Like, I remember a week before he went to college, I was like, all right, let's show me how to change a tire. Like we went through this, right? Did we do this? Did I teach you how to start a campfire? Like all the dad son things, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like did I miss it? Like, and I don't think any parent gets to the end of whether it's high school or college and says, man, I freaking nailed that. Look at that child. They're amazing. Like there's always things that we look back on. And I'll tell you, one of the characters in your book is me. I resonate with John Williams. And so you talk about John Williams in the book, and you have some parables about this character in the book. Tell the listener a little bit, what lessons does his story offer to people that are reading the book?
Yeah, that's great. So, yeah, the book, the first 2/3 of the book is a parable about this guy, John Williams, who is a business guy. He's got 3 little kids, a marriage. He's pretty successful in his company, but he realizes there's an incongruence in his life. Things are going great at work, but outside of work, he's not winning. In fact, he may be losing his family, kind of thing. And so we write this story. The back third of the book is a 70-page activation guide to help readers create a blueprint for their family. So I love the story because I think just like you connected with a character, and I think different people will connect with different characters and the story part of it. And I'm a storyteller, so I love that. I think that makes it readable. But the back third, really the money is in this activation guide. I want to have a blueprint for the family that I'm trying to build, and I think we help people do that. I'd say the lesson he learns. I'll take a little side road here, and I'll give you a lesson I learned as a kid, which I think there's a piece of it in the book. So
Sure.
when I'm a kid, we write this book, by the way, about this business guy. But the setting, a lot of the setting happens. He gets roped into being a volunteer little league baseball coach with a guy who ends up being the guy who sort of coaches him, guru guy that helps him sort things out. But
Willie, right?
Yeah, Willie, that's right. But one of the things that made me think about this idea to start with is something that my dad taught me when I was a kid. I was playing baseball. I'm like you. We kind of moved from baseball to basketball to football, and just year round, we're just playing whatever's going on. I'm in a little small town in North Georgia, and this is in the 1970s. So it's like I'm in the last century, a long time ago. And aluminum baseball bats had probably been invented a little bit before I got to be 12 years old, but it was that year that they came to our hometown. We'd never seen one. I got one for Christmas. And I am so excited. I'm thinking I'm going to be the oldest guy in our little league. And, I've paid my dues the last couple of years. And I was a good little player, but I was excited because I'm like, I'm going to become a home run hitter now. These bats, the ball's just flying off the thing in our backyard, and we're going to practice, and it's crazy. And so I'm all jacked up, about this. And that was the spring that my dad actually said, we're going to teach you how to bunt. And I'm like, bunt? Have you lost your mind? We don't need to bunt, And what happened was he basically taught me, how to bunt. My dad was an old National League guy, baseball guy, and he no DH back in the day, and he believed if you had guys on base that you move them over. You're trying to score, and I know everybody's trying to hit home runs now, which is fun for the fans and everything. But my dad was a big proponent of you sacrifice so somebody else can move up. And what I didn't realize, John, at the time, or Jeff at the time, about this this concept was my dad was teaching me how to be an adult. How to learn how to sacrifice. There's going to come a time, this, Jeff, with your own kids. You're going to be driving them everywhere and teaching them all kind of stuff and helping them with homework and reading to them and providing for them and mom and dad loving each other. You get married, you're going to learn very quickly. You're going to have an opportunity every day to learn how to sacrifice. It's what life is about. And the best leaders I know understand this mindset of being a servant leader. Being a person who shows up and helps somebody else rather than being a self-serving person. And I think everybody listening understands, we don't like to follow self-serving people. And yet, How many times am I self-serving versus serving? And then I'm wondering why I'm having trouble with my kids. My expectations are too high, or my tone is too harsh, or I'm trying to correct my spouse all the time. And the next thing you know, I've just lost the storyline when it comes to this idea of sacrifice. And, again, everybody gets to decide. You can go to your house and you can be, dominant and try to fix everybody and correct everybody and stifling and high expectations. I just know that's not going to work out for you from experience. No. My wife always says, saying something louder doesn't make you more right. And I'm telling you, as dads, or even moms, we can be like, I've got to say it louder so they'll get it. And I really don't. I've got to connect with their heart. If I can do that, now we got a chance for a family, what it ought to be, versus, just we live together, but we really don't even want to be together at that point. So,
that's great. That's great feedback. And
John, I think you and I need to learn that. It's
everybody.
Who doesn't need to know that? So,
it's never ending, because once you get through one phase, guess what? You get another one. You were talking about your family growing, and now you have grandchildren, and that's a new phase. And here's the thing. It's like, and you mentioned it, like, you're safe at the hospital with a new baby, but then you got to go home, and there's really not a manual for that. No. And my story is that of Randy, like, my parents didn't work, so I didn't even have a dad to look up to that went through this, career and home, tensions, and he had plenty of other tensions, but not that one. So when I started chasing success in a career, I didn't really have a dad that I grew up with to kind of learn from what to do, what not to do. But what I did find was there were amazing mentors that came across my path. I think the key to some of this is getting around people that have been where you're trying to get to.
For sure.
And that's Willie in the book. Willie was the one that, was offering wisdom advice when John needed it most. How important is it finding these mentors in our life when we're trying to win at home? And how do we go about finding someone like a Willie in our life? Like, we all want a Willie, but what advice do you have to go find these mentors, and why is this such an important component of winning at home?
Yeah, that's great. I think it would, I mean, all the executives that are listening or people understand that have done anything at a high level. You don't do that on your own. I thought about this years ago. The first time I really it's kind of light bulb came on for me was maybe back when I'm watching Tiger Woods play golf, and I'm thinking this guy is the best in the world at the time at what he does, and yet this was way back 2000 when he's got Butch Harmon as his coach, and I'm thinking, what's this guy? This guy doesn't look like he even hit a ball, and he's teaching the best guy on the planet, and so Tiger's open to. It's like you talk about this all the time, being open to feedback, and having these outside set of eyes that can help us with stuff. Well, I saw the same thing with Peyton Manning. A few years later, he's playing quarterback at the highest level that we'd seen before Brady came along. And they had some battles, obviously there, but I'm watching Peyton Manning. He had a quarterback coach named Tom Moore, and I think Tom Moore still may be coaching at this point. And you can look him up. He kind of looks like a hobbit. I mean, this guy's standing on the sideline, smoking cigarettes. He's a short little guy. He's kind of, and gray hair. And he looked 100 years old 20 years ago. And Peyton Manning, after every series, is coming over and talking to this guy. And I'm like, he's opened up to somebody else who can see things, has wisdom, and all that. And that to me is the essence of your question. How many times have we, Laura and I, through the years, were helped by people who are a little bit ahead of us? We're in a small group with them, or we meet them in our community, or we're at the ballpark, or wherever, the soccer field. We're finding people who are just a little bit ahead of us, and we're trying to learn. And I understand none of them have it perfect either. I mean, there are no perfect families. We're all a mess. But I think having somebody that you can look up to versus trying to do some of the things we're talking about in isolation, it'd be no different than an executive. We coach a bunch of executives, and the ones who are trying to do stuff in isolation, not the ones we coach, but the people who just say, I don't need a coach, I don't need anybody to help me. There's the old statement, Jeff, that we've heard, it's lonely at the top. It's only lonely at the top if you choose to go to the top by yourself. It's not.
That's right.
I don't think the goal is to get to the top. The goal is to get to the top together. And so, I think living in isolation is never a good idea. It's easy to do these days. It's easy to just check out on all these relationships and just focus on my screen or, technology. I can get lost in whatever habit. I mean, it's just it becomes a dangerous place for us to do that. And so, I don't think it's any different than it is at the office. We need an outside set of eyes sometimes there. And I think at home, who can encourage you? Who's been through the battles that you're about to go through? You're just you can learn something from people in a positive way. And you actually have some people, and I can share with you, sounds like you got some too. There's some things that we did that I wish we hadn't done. And if you share with somebody, we get to learn from other people's mistakes. We don't have to make them all ourselves. So we all heard that, but that really is true. So I think if you got somebody that's ahead of you, they're great. And then the other thing I would say, just one little side note here, is I think an example would be the book, but there's literally books. There's people I can't maybe go meet with the great parenting expert or the great marriage expert or whatever. But a lot of times they've written stuff, and to get a group of friends who may be on the same path with me together, and let's read that together. I know some guys are actually about to go through this together, and just have some conversations, and all of a sudden we realize, hey man, I'm not alone. This is hard. So
group of young moms, reason to do it alone.
Yeah, a group of young moms. Let me say a word about the moms. We just had Mother's Day, a little bit ago. And you mentioned the grandkids. We had a new grandkid. We've got 8 little grandkids now. Just had the 8th one just a couple of days ago, and we've been keeping.
Congrats.
It's great. But we've been keeping the 2 brothers of this new little guy that's come along. And oh my goodness! And we did that back in the day. We had 4 within 5.5 years, and it was exhausting. But for all those moms out there that are listening, and dads that got these young ones. you're heroes, man. You're heroes. Keep doing what you're doing. I know your kids aren't going to come home and thank you, or they're probably not going if they're preschoolers, but they're not going to thank you for keeping them alive every day. But you are heroes, and we need great families, and that happens when moms and dads show up and and sacrifice. I mean, again, you're going to get opportunities to practice what I've been talking about, but it is heroic, and I'm grateful that there are some folks out there who are really trying to do this right.
Yeah, that's why you wrote the book, is because it's not easy. It's not easy to
It's
be
not easy.
provider and amazing dad of the year at the same time. And that would maybe lead to a good question, Randy, as you've written this book and are now getting reader feedback and so forth. How do you address this common belief that success in the workplace has to come at the expense of the relationships in our lives? Like, what strategies can people take to reconcile this never-ending conflict that a lot of people that are chasing success have? What are those strategies? What are practical things that we can do? You've given us a couple so far. Any others that stand out?
Yeah, well, I would say let me kind of take a little side road here. So I've got a conversation I was having with an NFL assistant coach just a little while back, and we're talking, and this guy had actually played in the NFL and had actually won a Super Bowl, and he's got two little girls now, married, two little girls. He's an assistant coach in another organization from where he had won. And he said, he's asked, and I'm doing a little coaching session with him, and he asked me this question. He said, do you think you can win a Super Bowl and still not blow up your family? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And here's what he tells me. He said, when we won our Super Bowl, he was telling me about this. He said, the stage is out and the confetti's falling. And he said, on TV, it looks like, the whole place is raining with confetti. But he said, truthfully, I'm looking at the place, and a lot of fans are leaving. I mean, they're there for the game, and there's some friends and family that stick around, and there's a few thousand people left. But he said, a lot of people go home, and the confetti's really just falling in the one little area where the stage is, and the fans are blowing it up. The fans on the ground are blowing it up, not sports fans, but the fans that blow. Mm-hmm. He said, it just looks like it just looks awesome. But he said, I'm standing there looking, and he said, we've got so many coaches on our staff that have gone through divorce. He said, we got players on our team that I know they're not winning at home, was his statement. And he said, and I'm asking myself now, he said, we're trying to win a Super Bowl in this organization. He said, can you do that and not lose your family? And here's what I told him. I said, I don't know. I think you can. But I said, if you can't, I don't know why you're trying to win a Super Bowl. And he looked at me like, and he says, you're right. I mean, he looked at me like, dude, is that like, how can I say that? Now here's what I would say. That doesn't answer your question, but here's what I would say. I think
profound.
I think we ought to have a conversation within our organization. And I understand it. Not all of us are trying to win a Super Bowl, but you're trying to affect the P&L, or you're trying to increase the sales, or you're trying to get a promotion or whatever. And if we're not careful, we can create a culture where we value the wrong thing. Now, I'm not saying that the P&L and the profit, I mean, I have a company. I'm trying to grow it. It's great. We love it. We love serving organizations, and it's awesome. But I'm not going to do that at the expense of what matters most. I want to make sure that we can think about winning in both arenas. And I think we can, and we've proven that now over a decade. It's been great. Here's what I would say. People think about the idea of work-life balance. We even mentioned that earlier when we were talking.
Right.
And I think back to my elementary playground. We had the old, I don't even know if they have these anymore. We had the old seesaws, or teeter-totters, they called them. And I think we think our life is that way. We'll put work on one side and family on the other, and it'll just perfectly balance. I think that's a myth. Kids in elementary school, we never weighed the same thing. One guy's pushing up and down. I mean, there's going to be this imbalance, or I'll use the word tension here. There's going to be tension, because truthfully, Jeff, we're going to spend way more time at work than we are at home. I mean, we really are. Not your waking. I mean, your waking hours. I mean, you're going to sleep at home, but you're going to be at work. Let's just use the old 40 hours a week. How many hours a week are you with each of your kids? Not nearly as much. You're not with everybody 40 hours a week. We know that. So there's no such thing as balance. That to me is a myth. The key goes back to what we talked about a minute ago. you got to be there when you're there. If you're going to spend all this time at work and then go home and not really be at home and still be, you're still at work, I don't know how you build a great family without really focusing on your presence. And if I could,
Yeah.
I'll give one more little idea here, one thought. It's not,
Sure.
it's not necessarily tactical, but it's something we actually talk about in the business place. And I want to use your hunting analogy. So you get are you a bow hunter or are you or not?
All the above.
You're all the above. Okay, so that's great.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
So there's a guy on my team. He's a Kentucky guy, and his daughter, when she went to high school, she joined the archery team. And he's telling me, Scott's his name, he's telling me that the very first meet they went to, he's like, she's going to shoot, and there's all these kids, and it's competition going on. And he said that they have all these targets set up, and we're in a room, in a conference room, and he draws basically on a whiteboard, he draws a target. And I'm thinking the old rubber target with the blue and yellow and red. I mean, we got all these different colors. I mean, we've seen these targets before on a hay bale almost kind of mindset. And
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
And here's what he says. He draws the outside ring. He starts putting some dots, and he said, when the kids hit the dots or hit the outside ring of the target, you actually get some points for that. And if you hit the ring inside that, you get more points, more points. We get this. And here's what he does. He puts a big X in the middle, and he said, if you hit the one in the middle, you get a whole lot of points. I mean, there's a bullseye. And I think in companies, so many times, companies are what we would call sporadic versus strategic.
Right.
Sporadic is
Agreed.
we're just sort of flying by the seat of our pants, and hopefully we picked up a deal. And I think the same thing happens at home. If we're not careful, we don't have a bullseye that we're shooting at. And that to me is why this blueprint is so important, that we have a target of what do we want and why do we want it? What's our vision, but what's our motive behind that? And if we can lock in on that at home, now all of a sudden it becomes much more. We're just locked in on the bullseye, and as a hunter, if you miss by a little bit, you miss the target.
Done.
You're done. And there's an old.
done.
I heard this. I thought this was great. I heard this old. There's an old. I don't know if you read the Bible or not, but there's an old word in the Bible. I say an old word. Everybody knows the word sin. What is
Yeah.
sin? Sin is we don't do what we're supposed to, or we do what we're not supposed to. That's kind of the way we would all define sin. And actually, it comes from an archery term. I think I learned this. The Greek word, I think it's hamartia. It means literally, it's an archery word. It means to miss the target.
Wow.
Like that's
Wow.
such a good reminder. And,
Yeah.
and I think it's leadership sin, and I think it's family sin to not even have a target. And I think most of us are just like,
Right.
I hope my kids turn out okay. I hope my marriage works
Yeah.
out. I hope my company grows. And if we don't have a target, like that's, and I'm not getting into religion here, but I'm just saying that feels to me like we'll get to the end. Let's go back to our birthday
Yeah.
party down the road, and we're going, man, I didn't even, I wasn't locked in, and so it's not any surprise that I got a bunch of regret now. So that's kind of the way I think about that, and I would encourage
I
everybody
think that's good.
to really get locked in on what it is you want at work and what it is you want at home and why you want it. And if you can do that, you got a shot of winning in both places. I really believe that.
I agree. And I think I think one of the things, and maybe I'm speaking to myself and being a little vulnerable here, but sometimes it's easier to do it at work because there is a target given to you.
For sure.
It's like, here's your income statement, here's your sales quota,
Here's your
whatever it might be. This is it. This is your budget. This is like, it's kind of baked in for us. But at home, sometimes it's so broad, like I want, well-mannered children. Well, what's that mean? And what are the inputs? Like, we know what inputs we need to hit our sales revenue, but what are those inputs, and is there a miss? Which I guess would be another question for you, Randy, is what traits do you see in the people that are doing this well? What are some of the traits that you have seen exhibited when people can balance this professional and personal life simultaneously? What are those traits?
Yeah, well, I would say for us, I mean, we've tried to, have a great family. We've worked really hard at it. Tried to build a great career as well, and tried to have really tried to win on both fronts. And it's been really hard. But here's what I would say that started for us, and I think every family that I see who's getting this right, it starts with a decision. And I go all the way back to when we first got married. You know, we were way too young. We're 22. We're too young to get married at the time. I mean, like, what were we doing? Looking back, it's crazy. But we knew at that time we wanted to try to have a great family. We didn't want to, you know, we didn't. I mean, no, who joins a relationship or a family and says, I hope this doesn't work out. Nobody really hopes that. But I go all the way back to, like, we're gonna try to do some things. And on the front side, we really spent a lot of time talking about our values, the things that were important to both of us. I would say to anybody who's considering getting married, you know, you don't want to marry the wrong person, obviously. But if you're going to marry the right person, at least this is what it was for Laura and me, and I see this with a lot of people. We're so different. I mean, it is crazy how different we are. And I see people all the time who are married to each other, and the guy's one way and the woman's the other way, and one of them's an introvert and the other's an extrovert, whatever. I mean, there's one of them is a spewer when it comes to a conflict, and one of them is a stuffer. I mean, it's amazing how we end up in these. But what has held us together, and I think what holds most people together who stay together, is their alignment on their values. And so I would say, let's start with a decision. Let's make sure we're aligned on our values. And then the third thing I would say is, this is what pushes me, but let's try to connect at a heart level. Let's go back to even what we're talking about with manners with our kids, or behavior at school. So many times I want my kids to do X or Y because I think it'll be a reflection on me if they do, you know, C or D. I mean, I'm just telling you, and that, am I more interested in their behavior modification, or am I more interested in them having a heart is connected to the wise thing to do is always the best thing to do. And that takes time. That takes conversations. That's hard. And I think so many times, if I'm not careful, I can have high expectations. I can have maybe my own pride's on the line, and I'm like, I think they're a reflection of me if they don't get it right. And you know, or even parents, you're talking about, you know, these moms and dads who are pushing their kids into 100 travel ball games in one sport. Is that what the kid wants, or is the dad trying to, you know, prove something that was never proved? I mean, all this stuff, I mean, happens.
Yes.
So what happens is, again, we can live with people and not have intimacy. Here's the way I say it. Proximity is not the same thing as intimacy. And I'm not talking about sexual intimacy here. I'm talking about you and your kids, your spouse, your extended family. I mean, as a spouse, you can sleep with somebody and not have real connection, intimacy there. You can live and drive everybody to school every day and not have intimacy. You're in the same car, but you're not really together. And I think that's the part that we keep pushing toward, a heart connection at home. And then here's the cool thing, and we're seeing this some now, which is really cool, is we're as parents, as grandparents now, we're a lot smarter now than we were about 10 years ago. Our kids are coming back now. Going, oh my gosh, I can't believe that I wasn't more appreciative. And I mean, because they have their own little kids now. They're taking them home from the hospital.
Oh, yeah.
Too. And so now that doesn't always happen, but I heard somebody say you want to raise your kids in such a way that they actually, you don't raise them to keep them, Jeff. I mean, you raise them to launch them out. They're going to leave. That's what they're supposed to do. And I mean, there's stuff there that if we're not careful, we can try to control. And you got to let them go live their life. And not only that, I think you celebrate that. But you do want to parent in such a way that the kids, when they leave, they actually want to come back some. And they may not be able to. They're all. I mean, I know people living all over the world now, but there is this connection opportunity that we have, and if we get that right, then there's another fun season down the road with these grandkids. It's great now. I mean, it's like I didn't mention this. We have 8 of them that are 3 and under. It's like a preschool around here. They're like kids and
8 grandkids under 3 years old.
8 of them. It's wild, man. But it's so fun. It's so fun. And I think if we get that right, you know, that part of it is the best. And I can't imagine, you know, and I didn't get all this right at all. I can't imagine
Me either.
I would feel if everybody didn't want to be around each other. I love the fact that our kids enjoy each other, their husbands do. I mean, all that stuff. And so, because I think they can lean into each other and learn from each other as well.
No
Hopefully
question.
do some stuff that
I'm
we
hoping to be a better grandpa than I was a dad. Like
yeah,
I
yeah.
got, I'm always
It's way more
aspiring to
fun.
do more and
It's
do
way more
better,
fun.
right?
Everybody says that, but it really is. It's the best.
But what you said about that gentleman that was at the Super Bowl game. I think your response to him was profound, and I think listeners needed to hear that. Right? It's like, well, is it possible to win the Super Bowl and win at home? And your response, I'm paraphrasing, was, well, if you can't, then what's the point of winning a Super Bowl?
Yeah.
And this is this call to action of like, what is most important? But Randy, and maybe this is a great way to close out the conversation, is you have felt it, I'm sure. I have felt this pressure. There's a listener right now that is saying, this is resonating with me. I have to do better. I want to spend more time with my spouse, my kids, the people that I love. And I'm missing this, but I just don't know a way out. The pressures of work and climbing is so hard. And of course, there's seasons and so forth. But Randy, what advice would you give to someone who's feeling this, just overwhelmed by the demands of their career and the struggle to prioritize their family or their personal life? Like, what could you say to encourage them?
Yeah, well, let me. I want to act this. I will encourage them here, but I want to start with a little bit of a warning. And I had never thought about this until this week. I mean, I just said this week to somebody, and because they said I have these, these seasons in my life. And here's what I've noticed when it comes to family life: if we're not careful, I have this season at work. We have this project at work. I have this season that's coming up. I have this season of heavy. We're going after this goal. We're going after seasons, Jeff, can become patterns. And I think that's dangerous. If we're not careful, it'll just be season to season to season. And when's the season for the family? And so I think we need to think about how do we build both. And what I would say to really also, I wouldn't say in warning, I'll just kind of pull this back to the middle. But what I told the guy, the coach was, and what I would say to the listener is, if you don't have alignment in your organization with your boss, with your supervisor, with the people, if you're the owner, you get a chance to decide what kind of culture you're going to have. But some of you are not in that environment. And again, I would say we need to be careful that we don't hitch our wagon to somebody who is misaligned with us. I mean, I'm saying let's make sure we're aligned value-wise with our spouse. I want to be aligned value-wise with my boss. If my boss is saying it's this, I mean, all they're doing is extracting value from me rather than valuing me, that's a really dangerous place. And you get to choose who you work for. So I would say that to everybody who's listening. Now, that doesn't mean you go quit your job. I would encourage you to have a conversation with your boss and clarify some stuff. And so many times, we work with so many great companies, so many great leaders who do want their people to win outside of work. I mean, but because here's the reality. If my people on my team, I have a team, if they're winning outside of work, they're better at work. I mean, they really are. And so I don't want us to miss that point. And so I'd love for all, every company, leader, boss, team, whatever, read this together, have this conversation together. I think that's good. But here's what I would say to everybody on the encouraging side. I believe with all my heart that families are I mean, I really do believe this is the opportunity for us to make a difference in our culture. And I know, let me one little caveat. Not everybody's married. Not all families look the same. I mean, we got single moms and dads. I mean, I understand all that. I really do. And so wherever you are, no matter what your family situation is, I want to try to be the best family member I can be. Because all of us are connected in some way, shape, or form to our family or even to our inner circle. I mean, however you want to think about that. I don't want us to miss that. But I'm convinced the government, I don't care which way you vote. I mean, it really doesn't matter which way you lean politically. The government is not about to fix all the mess that's going on in our culture.
No.
I got so many friends who are really great teachers. I mean, education, they're telling me, these teachers are saying, education is not the end-all, be-all answer to everything. Everybody, I mean, education is valuable. We need it. It's great.
Sure.
I mean, we're helpless if we don't have it. I understand. I used to be a teacher. I mean, I love it. But that's not the answer. To me, the family is where it starts. And my idea or my dream is for everybody to get to grow up in a stable, great family if possible. There are no perfect families. There are no great families. Right? We're all trying to chase how, can we make it better? But
Right.
here's what I know: when we're not in a stable family, it makes. I mean, I've got so many people that'll tell you it is so hard for you if you don't have that. And the people who I know that had that or have that, they would all be at the front of the line going, "This is great. I can't imagine not having
Yes.
that." So we talk about in the workplace, we dream about a world well led. I would say at home, I dream about everybody not just being well led at work, but being in a great family. And I think it starts, I'll just leave it with this idea. I think it starts with us saying or asking ourselves often, what's it like to be led by me at work, and what's it like to be loved by me at home? And if you'll just start with yourself, every
That's
single
good.
person, and what we always tell people is, if you live your life in such a way that the people who know you the best love you the most, I think you're on a good track right there. The people who know you the best.
Man, that's good.
So many people I know, the people who know them the best, respect them the least, and that's not what we want. We know that. We get to 80 and we're going, why did I not get this right? You and I got a little water under the bridge, and we know, like, this regret thing can be real. And so I don't want that for any young mom or dad, any young brother or sister. I mean, anybody that's listening. Let's live our lives in such a way that the people who know us the best love us the most. And I think the world could be better because of your showing up.
The people that know us the best love us the most. There's your report card, listener. Like, how are we doing? And Randy, thank you so much for this book. I mean, this book is truly a gift, because this is, and look, I'm all about content and learning and whatever, but this one really resonates with me. And there's no doubt. And again, I do executive coaching, so this is a conversation that's coming up all the time. And this is one of the biggest challenges that we have as leaders, as executives, as professionals. And the book outlines this so well. How do we best contact you? How does the listener get in touch? We'll put all this obviously in the show notes, but how can the listener best reach out to you, find your content?
Yeah, that's great. So I got a book here. I got a copy of the book here. They can get the book wherever they, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever they want to go. If you do buy one, I would say this. Go to winningbeginsathome.com, and you can put in your order number for if you get a book, and we're going to give you I think a team put together $150 worth of bonus stuff. There's a course that I've done, a video course that I've done on this. We're going to give that to you for anybody that buys the book. I would say also go there if you're looking for bulk pricing on it. You can get that. A lot of people are already saying, I want to give this to everybody in my organization. We're going to talk about it. That's fantastic. Go to winningbeginsathome.com, and you can find us there. If I can help you, let me know. We love serving leaders. It's what we do. We're just trying to, in our small way, show up and make the world better, just like all of your listeners are, and I love that. So, yeah, get the book. Love for you to leave us a review on Amazon if you like it. Even if you don't like it, tell us what you think, and any way we can serve you, that'd be great.
Yeah, and we'll for the listener, we'll put links to all of that in the show notes, as well as I'll include Randy's link to his LinkedIn as well. That way you can connect with him in that regard. Randy, once again, thank you so much. Thank you for this book. I know there's going to be plenty more written after this one, but this one is certainly special. So thank you for investing into getting that book into the world. And listener, hey, this is another one. We've had some amazing authors on this show. This is one that you don't want to mess up, right? We don't want to lose at home for the sake of winning in our careers. But listen, I appreciate you all joining today. I'm cheering for you as you continue to create healthy balance in your pursuit to success. And until next week, keep leading well and keep turning the pressure into potential.